I was surprised to see a bunch of the previous top budget mini PC picks are now discontinued, so it's definitely time for an update. The $250 and under price point is mostly dominated by budget minis with Intel's Alder Lake N chips, which do the job for everyday computing, but aren't exactly speed demons. AMD's more powerful options also start appearing at the upper end of this price, but as always, if it hasn't been reviewed, it doesn't make the list. I spent a good few hours looking through the listings and cross-referencing the options against my reviews, then deliberating on my picks until I finally had 5 I thought were worthy. It's never easy. All picks are sorted by lowest to highest price and are given a unique award. Affiliate links and reviews are in the video description for a more in-depth look at each mini. Thanks for your support by using them, which keeps this channel going. I reviewed the Chatray N100 as the rebranded Good To Go T9, and it's a great budget mini PC. After finding this listing with competitive pricing, nearly all the other Intel N100 minis on my list were no longer considered for a spot. The base model is $133 after the coupon and includes 8GB of RAM and a 256GB SSD, or double both memory and storage for $160. What makes this mini stand out, apart from its good cooling, performance and low fan noise, is its feature set. This is one of very few Intel N100 minis to include 2 USB-C ports. Either can be used to power the mini if that's your preference, and support display output as well. So it's a top choice for those wanting something cheap they can power and display using a USB-C monitor. However, Intel's N100 CPU only supports a maximum of 3 displays, with 2 coming from the HDMI ports and 1 from either USB-C port at any one time. Included with a Chatray is a wall power supply, VESA mount, and HDMI cable. The Good To Go T9 that was reviewed had the M.2 2242 SATA slot occupied by the OS drive, and the M.2 2280 NVMe slot was available for an additional drive. Not sure if Chatray has the same configuration, but it's highly likely. Performance is great out of the box and no tweaks are needed, but since it uses DDR4 instead of DDR5 memory, there is a few % drop in integrated graphics over other Intel N100 mini PCs. At this low level of GPU performance, I don't think it really matters. The Chatray N100 chugs little power with a maximum of 29 watts being recorded. While it has a simple Wi-Fi chip and just gigabit LAN, it should fit many usage cases and is good value with a nice feature set that punches above its budget price. And that's why it makes it into the list. GMKTech's G5 is a cool tiny mini PC that makes for a great emulation box up to the PS2, GameCube and Wii at 720p, but you can use it for everyday computing as well. The included Intel N97 processor is actually faster than the N100, especially in the graphics department. Why is the N97 faster than the N100? Only Intel knows. The G5 made it on the list because it's only $145 for the 12GB RAM, 256GB SSD model. That makes it the cheapest Intel N97 mini I've seen. Performance is decent overall, but this mini has trouble keeping the CPU temp down when it's under a full core load. Emulation doesn't use all cores fully, so it won't be a problem for that usage case, nor browsing the web or other lighter tasks. Rather than upgrading the storage, you can use a micro SD card for media files thanks to the slot on the side. GMKTech's G5 has good wireless range and a decent set of ports when you take into account just how small it is. The mini reviewed came with an older BIOS which cut graphics performance, but that was a while back and the newer version should be included. I retested it after updating the BIOS and the performance increase was what it should be. The G5 comes with a USB-C power supply, but unfortunately doesn't support display through the USB-C port, so you'll have to use one of the HDMI instead. Oh, and be aware, memory is soldered on, so there's no upgrading from the 12GB. Overall, a fun little mini PC that has the average Joe refusing to believe it's an actual computer. And with that all out of the way, GMKTech's G5 wins the best budget emulation mini PC. Blackview's MP80 is another mini PC with Intel's N97 CPU. It's again smaller than your average size box and performs better than the G5 or any N100 overall. While the price is steep at $190, you do get a 1TB SSD and 16GB of RAM. So this will be a good budget pick for those wanting a lot of storage. Port-wise, there's dual gigabit LAN, along with 3 HDMI ports and 3 USB. While the MP80 is smaller than average, cooling is good and the CPU temp was kept in check. Also, fan noise isn't bad at all. To get maximum performance, you might need to do a BIOS tweak, which is detailed in the review. It's unlikely the settings were ever updated during production. Accessory-wise, there's a wall power supply, HDMI cord, and VESA mount. No further storage drives can be added, and the memory is soldered on, so it's not upgradable. If you need a mini PC with lots of storage, then the Blackview MP80 is a good option and is the best performing Intel Mini under $200. Sadly, my go-to budget AMD Ryzen Mini, the Beelink Surf 5 5560U, is now discontinued, so I scrambled to find a replacement under $250. There is one that meets the criteria, and that's Paladin's Woe 4 featuring the AMD Ryzen 5500U. This is a far more powerful Mini than any Intel budget, but the price increases to $229 for the 16GB RAM, 512GB SSD model. Included is a fairly compact wall power supply, 2.5-inch SATA storage expansion ribbon cable, VESA mount, and HDMI. One cool feature is how easy the Woe 4 is to open. The magnetic lid takes little effort to remove and gets you access to storage and memory. A downside of the 16GB model is the single RAM stick, which slashes graphics performance by as much as 40%, and I doubt the majority will ever upgrade it. Still, even with a single stick, it manages to beat the Intel Minis in CPU and GPU performance. The BIOS does allow you to increase the power limit, which pushes performance further, but then the fan noise levels become obnoxious. I'd personally stick to the default power mode. Port-wise, it's pretty plain, but it does have 2 LAN ports, one which is 2.5 gigabits and the other being gigabit. I like the unique design of the Woe 4, and the magnetic lid makes it easy to open, but it bums me out many will not get to experience its full integrated graphics potential. Would have been great if this model came with 2 8GB sticks of RAM instead of one 16. Overall though, it's still the best performer under $250. The last Mini is not cheap, but it is unique and worthy of being on the list for the second time now. Minix's Z100 0DB is a completely fanless and silent mini PC using Intel's popular N100 CPU. And what's unique about this one is that it's around the same size as the fan-cooled minis, it's still able to perform as well as the top N100 contenders while shaming some of the worst performers. It comes in at $240 for the 16GB RAM, 512GB storage combo. The metal case acts as the heatsink for the whole Mini, so it does get quite warm, but won't burn you if you touch it. This is a great option for those wanting a mini PC on 24/7, as there aren't any moving parts. The Z100 0DB uses external antennas, which means really good wireless reception, and the port selection is decent. Although, it would have been nice if the USB-C port was fully featured instead of data only. If you constantly thrash this mini PC under load, the CPU will get hot. It works best with mixed workloads, or if it's at least given a break to cool down passively. There's an Intel N300 version if you need more performance, but that one is above $250. So, the Minix Z100 0DB rounds off the minis as the best budget fanless. Choosing the top 5 budget minis this time was much more difficult than usual, as a few of my favorites are no longer available or just too expensive. Anyway, I hope that's helped you choose something that appeals to you or narrowed it down a bit. Thanks for watching, and if you're looking for mini PCs with much more performance, I've updated my top 5 mini PCs for 2024, starting from $409 all the way up to $1,200. You can check out that video right here. Cheers!